Made laws in Canada. I've talked about this a little bit. Medical assistance in dying. Made laws in Canada. More than 100,000 people have now been put to death in Canada voluntarily, or at least they say voluntarily, for things as minor as I'm depressed. It's not a joke. Oh, by the way, and for people who like to keep track of demographics, 97% of those people were white folks that were lined up to take their own lives. Maybe they had cancer, maybe they had depression, maybe they had whatever, but it's a diminishing of life to me. It's a diminishing of the value of life, and I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that today. Mark Mostert is here, PhD, senior researcher at Able Americans, the National Center's project to support Americans living with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities. Nice to see you today, Mark.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
To me, these numbers out of Canada are shocking, but what happens there tends to migrate down here. We have some laws in places like Oregon and elsewhere that, assisted suicide. I mean, whatever happened to the repudiation of people like Dr. Jack Kevorkian? What happened to that? All of a sudden, this is mainstream normal. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, it is crazy when you look at the hard facts, and it hops from country to country. It really started in Europe towards the end of the last century, and it did exactly that. Started in the Netherlands, Belgium, and so on and so forth. Canada is much more recent. They only passed their law in 2016 after a really difficult fight with people who didn't want the law passed. And the law makes very exclusively clear that you can be killed by a medical doctor or a medical professional if you have a quote-unquote certain set of symptoms. The problem is, and this happens in every country that we've ever seen this happen, it starts out with assurances that this is going to be for very few people in very isolated incidents and very rare. The truth is exactly the opposite. Canada, as you said, is closing in on 100,000 deaths since 2016 by euthanasia. Now, there's a difference between assisted suicide and euthanasia. Assisted suicide, someone gives you a poison and you take it yourself. You commit suicide with the help, the assistance of somebody. However, euthanasia is when someone directly kills you. And that's what's going on in Canada. And the euphemism medical aid in dying sounds so lovely, and it sounds so comforting. And we're gonna help you just move on to the next world. But in fact, there are horror stories by the hundred out of Canada. And MAID, medical aid in dying, which is medicalized killing, is now basically offered to people for very minor ailments. You don't have to anymore. You don't have to have a terminal illness. It doesn't have to be a physical illness. As you said, it can be something psychological. And if you can convince two doctors, who are all pretty much in on this, by the way, that you want to die, that's readily available to you. Euthanasia is now the fifth leading cause of death in Canada.
Say that again?
Yeah, it's the fifth leading cause of death in Canada, euthanasia.
Killing themselves. Top 5. It's shocking. People want to bring it here. And socialized medicine. People say, well, there's no such thing as a death panel. But there is when it comes to socialized medicine. And Canada has socialized medicine and MAID laws. These two things run parallel, do they not, Mark?
Yes, they do, because I asked the question in a series I did for Able Americans a while ago, saying, where do we draw the line at what life is worthy and what life is unworthy? And clearly, when you have socialized medicine, you have scant resources, you're stretched very thin. And so the idea is developed that if we have people that are seriously medically compromised, perhaps, maybe terminally ill, is it the best use of our resources to try to comfort them and give them expensive care, or is it better spent on people who will recover? And the resounding answer is we're going to spend it on people who can recover. Easy example, a woman, an 84-year-old woman went into the emergency room. She'd fallen on her tailbone. The first words before diagnosis was made, before a scan was given to find out what the problem was, the first words out of the doctor's mouth were, "We can offer you MAID if you'd like." It turned out she cracked her tailbone, went home with some Tylenol, and was fine in 2 weeks. That is happening repeatedly now, where this is seen as the default, quote-unquote, medical treatment in Canada and across the world. Now, in the U.S., we do not yet have euthanasia. we only have assisted suicide. 14 states now allow for assisted suicide, including DC. And it's bubbling up through many other state legislatures. So while assisted suicide is the thin end of the wedge, we will get to where Canada is unless we basically raise up a standard against it.
Yeah. This is remarkable. It's a progression to me, Mark. Abortion on demand up to the moment of birth, MAID laws. It is the dismissal of the value of human life to me. Am I wrong about that?
You're absolutely right, and that's the question to be asked. When is a life unworthy of our care, of our support, and our love? Now, it's very true that resources can't cover everything for anyone, but we're not doing a really good job of taking care of people with seriously compromised conditions. It's also true, this is a death cult. There's no other way to put it. This is a cult that demands death on demand, anywhere, anytime, for any reason, for anyone. That's their ultimate goal. And as you said, abortion, assisted suicide, euthanasia, the denigration of people with serious medical disabilities leads many in the disability community to really fear for what will happen if they walk into a doctor's office and the doctor happens to be someone who thinks they should pop them off versus giving them some better treatment.
Yeah. We need to pay attention to this, Mark, and push back on these things and show people the truth about Canada. The fifth leading cause of death in Canada is, well, it's euthanasia. Mark, thank you for being here. I'll have you back because it's an important story to me. I've been talking about it for a long time now, and now the numbers are coming out. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.